Information from the executive committee. We visited with them a couple months ago on this enforcement and asked some questions, and we thought it was a very good presentation. We thought it answered a lot of questions. It gave us some information on the process we did not know. And I would certainly entertain Commissioner Woodruff or Commissioner Pena to add anything to that. But I thought it was well thought out. I thought it was put together. And if y'all want to make a comment on that.
No, I agree.
No, for sure, definitely understanding, especially for the new commissioners, to understand the process of enforcement.
Yeah, that
how
was-
all the cases come.
Yeah.
What is a PFD and how it got to that point is certainly.
Enlightening.
Well,
Yeah,
when you try to understand the enforcement process of how everything comes to be, the initiation of a complaint and by whom, to the ultimate disposition of us ruling on a PFD, it's like drinking water from a fire hydrant. It comes at you very fast. And so I think this presentation does a good job of kind of bringing everything together. One of the concerns that we had with Commissioner Lerner was the consistency of how the process takes place. You see the results, and we get emails on certain consent items that come into our emails, and certainly we read them once in a while, not all the time. But then you start seeing the consistency of how the enforcement is being applied and the timing. And so kind of wanted to bring that, get a better understanding of the entire process. So maybe that would answer some of the questions that we've had in the past.
And one of the most egregious things that we get email on is when somebody's done something bad. I mean, they're running with scissors and they need to be sanctioned, waterboarded, whatever, and it's not within our purview.
Yeah.
You know, and it's frustrating. I know it's probably frustrating for them. I think it's even frustrating for us. They're in the business and we can't do anything about it. So I think this kind of summed all that up. And so we're gonna start with a video.
Yes.
And then.
And the reason why we're doing a video is that I nominated Mike Malloy, our Director of Enforcement, for the Governor's Executive Development Program, which is this fantastic leadership training that is 3 weeks in the fall. So there's a week in September, one in November, and one in December. Commissioner Hargraves did it last year, and many of us in this room actually have. I did not know when I nominated him that I was pulling him away the week of the commission meeting. But so what we did was we recorded pretty much the presentation that he provided to the executive committee. He recorded, and then Sierra did a fantastic job kind of editing that and producing that into what you're about to see. So is there anything else that we need to say before we start it? No? Okay. Summer, is this you? She's not breathing right now, y'all.
Just some technical difficulties, but we are getting there.
No, we're totally handling it.
I hate it when that happens.
In the meantime, I will also say, just to fill space, and I hope this is helpful, but this is a hard copy of the presentation you'll see. And then you also have, sorry, James, I'm stealing this from you, this flow chart of the TREC and complaint process, which I think is helpful.
I forgot what Mike looks like.
You forgot what Mike looked like?
Yeah, thank you
know.
for-
Again.
Yeah, there you go.
It should be doing it, but it's not. It should. Very, very odd. There.
That looks like something happened in there.
Mike Malloy. I'm the Director of Enforcement with the Texas Real Estate Commission. Today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most important functions that the Real Estate Commission does, and its consumer protection mission. First, I want to refer you to the truck complaint process flow chart. It looks like this. This will just give you some guidance on how the complaint process, proceeds. It's not in full detail. There's a lot of other little intricacies, but it gives you some guidance and something that you can use as reference through this presentation and in the future if necessary. First, we're going to talk about prioritizations of investigation process. There's two types of investigations that we handle at the commission: how we dispose of the cases and make a determination on punishments, case studies. And we'll wrap up talking about how our attorneys are trained in making these determinations, their review process, and follow up with our re-review process. After a complaint comes in and we determine jurisdiction, the legal assistant and the attorney work together using the statute that's listed here, 1101.204, and determining the type of investigation that we're going to have. And it's a prioritization type of system. So we look at these factors here. We look at the type of harm, the amount of harm, the number of license holders that are potentially involved in it. And we also look at the overall, license history of the individual that may be in there. Once we make those evaluations, we have two forms of investigation, what we call headquarters and field investigation. The headquarters ones are generally like low priority types of complaints. For instance, advertising, or ones that have like lower consumer harm. One advantage on these ones is, there's a faster turnaround. Field investigation's a lot more detailed. We're interviewing individuals, collecting more evidence. There may be more complex matters, especially dependent on harm. And currently how our measures are set up is an investigative report should be turned in within 4 months that it's filed. Obviously, you have a little more time difference there. So those things, due to their seriousness, we want to get it right and make sure we've investigated as best as possible. Before we investigate anything, we need to have reasonable cause. You need to have at least enough evidence in order to start the investigation. The key when it comes back from investigation is meeting our burden of proof. We have a situation where the attorney that reviews the matter has to have a mindset where they have to be prepared to take this to SOA. So saying we do meet that burden of proof, and the attorney feels that meet that burden of proof. Then we're going to move to the decision factor of what type of discipline we're going to at least recommend or pursue. First is the seriousness of the violation. We also use our levy of penalty or penalty matrix, which are set out in 1101.702 and 535.191. We always try to be consistent. It's a responsibility for us to have some consistency. Facts matter in most of these cases, and in many cases you can't match apple to apple because there's just too many factors that go on. We try our best in order to, if we discipline individuals in a certain fashion, if there's similar types of complaints against other individuals, then they'll have a certain, maybe similar type of punishment depending on how they handled themselves in those actions as well. Before I start, a lot of these complaints came from one individual, so we're reviewing that. The final case, it's separately separate, and that's based upon just to show how we will administer an administrative penalty in a case like a background history case. But the other three cases, or excuse me, the other four cases are actual cases. Names have been removed just to make it clean, but I'll go through all the facts associated for each one of the cases and our decision-making process. Complaint was filed against the buyer's agent and also the listing agent. There were separate allegations levied against each of them. So I'm going to start with the buyer's agent just to show it, because this is the most serious violation of the allegations and why it was sent to the field, because there was an allegation of fraud in this where the buyer's agent was alleged to participating in removing one of the buyers in the transaction after the transaction had closed. Obviously, a serious allegation. After the investigation occurred, discovered that, this request to remove one of the buyers from the contract came from the title company. Additionally, there was evidence that was presented where the warranty deed that was signed at closing, the property only went to one of the two buyers that were listed on the contract. This was purposeful. This was done because there was only one of the buyers wanted to be entitled. However, the other person that was involved in the transaction was going to be listed as a guarantor on the deed of trust. So this, the amendment overall was never signed or never completed. In my review of it, it appears that they were trying to clarify what was presented on the contract versus what the real intent of the buyers were in the transaction and how they were participating in the lending process. Ultimately, it was because of this conflicting evidence, insufficient evidence was found against the agent. The second part of the complaint dealt with allegation that there was unlicensed activity being performed by a LLC that was licensed by the listing broker. The listing broker had a DBA registered under them individually, which had a similar name to the LLC that was not licensed with this agency. We questioned this individual about it. They say they didn't use the LLC for brokerage activity. They did all their brokerage activity independently. They sponsored their own agents independently. And the LLC was more set up because it was a recommendation by one of his attorneys. There was no other evidence outside of the allegation and the fact that the LLC was registered to the Secretary of State to proceed further on any kind of investigation to show that there's any sort of unlicensed activity by this LLC. Therefore, the resolution overall in that case was insufficient evidence. Moving on to case 2. This one's similar to the first one. There's not as many parties involved in this case, but there's a similar allegation where a license holder had a registered or the LLC that was filed with the Secretary of State, and they had actually a DBA that was not registered with the commission, and both of them had a similar name. We investigated the matter and could not discover the use of the LLC in any context. The individual stated to us that they didn't use it for those purposes. However, an advisory letter was issued because this DBA needed to be registered under his name, and that was done so. So when you have an unlicensed activity case, there's two things we need to prove up. First of all, you have the advertisement. That's the first part. That does show that there is some sort of brokerage activity occurring. But second part of the law is if you're doing that activity, you need to be doing it for the expectation of compensation. So we need to show there's at least some sort of, they were anticipating at the very minimum being paid for the advertising or possible sale of this property. The listing agreement negated that because the listing agreement showed that if this property did close, then the compensation would be going to the licensed business entity. Therefore, we didn't have sufficient evidence to show that there was unlicensed activity being done by this LLC. Moving on to case 4, this is also an unlicensed activity case, slightly different. It's headquarters. Information that came into us revealed that this was likely possibility that there was unlicensed activity occurring. We issued a cease and desist to start our investigation process. Part of the response was the person involved with this unlicensed business entity was also a licensed broker. They admitted that they didn't have a license for this, and additionally, evidence pointed that they were using this for, traditional brokerage activity. So the process where we did is they went and got a license, and they were dishonest in their application when they were submitting it. They didn't admit to unlicensed activity, so that required an administrative penalty, and they were placed on a probated suspension just based upon, in general, their unlicensed activity that had been going on since about 2011, maybe before that. So moving on to our final case, the case 5. This one was added just to kind of show how we handle our penalty matrix in regards to administering, administrative penalties. So we have a range on all in the rule, and in this case, which is typical, there was a felony offense committed by a license holder. It wasn't serious enough to revoke, but it was necessary to put them on probated suspension. And if you remember, when someone's on community supervision or probation for criminal offense, they're typically put on probated suspension with us until at least that community supervision ends. There was also issues in this case where the person didn't properly notify us within the 30 days that are required. They answered no on the renewal questions, and they didn't timely cooperate with us. First, when any attorney comes, first thing they do is they're reviewing the statutes and rules and the policies of the commission, understanding those. The onboarding process is quite a rigorous one in certain circumstances. They're provided complaints, easier ones in the beginning. After that, it gets progressively harder. But they're sitting with a senior and myself in many cases, reviewing each case, reviewing the evidence, talking about what rules apply or statutes apply, and going through the whole process of the complaint process and seeing, can we meet our burden of proof in order to establish a violation? So when does this happen? It happens when a complainant disagrees with our determination, and this is usually with the complaints that's been dismissed, for like insufficient evidence or no violation. We do ask for a written explanation why they're, disagreeing with our determination. The review is done by a separate attorney. It's not done by the attorney that initially reviewed the matter. And we tried to turn those re-review responses back within 60 days. If it's necessary to reopen, which is very rare, then the attorney that makes the decision to reopen it, they will pursue with whatever, discipline or whatever that's necessary to change that determination. So that's my deep dive presentation for the day. I appreciate the time for me to set out how we handle these matters. There's a lot of time that goes into these cases. We take them seriously. The complainant took their time to file the complaint, so we want to make sure we get it right. That's why we have the re-review process, like what I mentioned, and overall the training with each one of the attorneys that make these important decisions on every case. So thank you again for your time, and that's all I have for today.
All right, when we met in executive, there were 5 specific cases that we went over the history for. And those were the 5 he covered. And I wish you would have been here in person. It was much better. But I think the issue we were dealing with is, why was it dismissed and what did you do?
Right.
And when he did the cease and desist letter, this is, in my opinion, truly a case of not knowing what they don't know. This person had been operating under an LLC since 2011. And then when he found out a cease and desist was done, he got the license. And, we hear all the time about, well, they didn't look at it. They look at everything. And I think before they dismiss it or do anything, it is reviewed. And then if it is dismissed, it can be resubmitted. And the 5 we looked at, all 5 of them you know, whether we agreed that they were doing good or bad, staff was right. You know, we might wanted them to have some type of sanction, but staff was right. And so I think that's what we need to realize is they've got a good process and can always fine tune it, but they have a good process.
So,
Commissioner Pena, then Commissioner Lerner.
one of the things that in going through all of this is the level of enforcement, right? And we talked a little bit about letters of comment. When the level of the offense doesn't really go far enough for an actual enforcement action against the respondent. In the case of the agent that was asked to modify the contracts post-closing, we had a situation where the title company had actually closed the contract incorrectly, and they asked him, hey, can you go back and get signatures and redo the paperwork, right? And so they were asking him to change the documentation. He actually attempted to try and do that, and I believe that the other party refused to do that, which is what really saved him, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that he actually made an intent to get the paperwork changed to reflect to what the title company had closed, you know, it's like, you shouldn't be doing that. That's almost crossing the line into a fraudulent transaction, which was the whole crux of the thing. And so in our view, we thought that a dismissal for insufficient, yes, there was insufficient evidence to prosecute that case under a specific rule. However, it did demonstrate that the agent was willing to cross the line into something that was illegal, and that's where we kind of felt that a complete dismissal was an absolution of he didn't do anything wrong. Well, he didn't do anything wrong because it was decided for him by another party.
Right.
Right, and that was, I think, the whole
A little bit.
part of that, and then you also had the DBA thing.
Right, so I kind of, a couple of us are familiar with this, and I went back and looked at everything last night and where we are today. So in case one, I think, yes, I get all of that part, but then the question of the LLC and DBA weren't in the initial complaint. But I think several of us that have been here for a while hear that if they find another issue while investigating one thing, they will look into another. So I went ahead and I looked at this LLC and DBA thing yesterday, and it's still not, I mean, he has one up there that's not registered at all. That's on TREC website. There is one that expired in 2017 and one that was last renewed. A DBA was last renewed in 2004, which you have to renew them every 10 years. And then there's one that's not even listed again, but expired. So his LLC still isn't licensed. And I think in some of these emails going back and forth, staff was asked, well, did you get a closing statement? Did you see how it was paid? And it was like, we interviewed the respondent. Anybody's gonna cover themselves and say.
But see, I think this is a totally different conversation, and I had this before the meeting. You have an LLC and you have a DBA. And DBA is almost also doing business as the way real estate, like you look at one broker, they have 300 DBAs. Like me and Paula form a team, we call it Kestner team, the Kestner team. That's our DBA. But all the checks are being paid to the brokerage and they're paying to Scott Kestner. And so we've got to establish the difference between a DBA and an LLC.
Right, but I'm saying none of it was.
And if he has a DBA, but he's being paid, or an LLC, but he's being paid to the right person, and I think that's what the investigation
Right.
found, he was being paid to that. I don't care if he has an expired LLC, he wasn't doing brokerage activity under that.
DBA was expired.
Well,
And if that-
but
there was no
they
LLC.
weren't paying the DBA. That's what staff said, they're not paying the DBA.
Well,
They're,
staff said they interviewed him and that's what he said. Did
Yeah.
they check anything? No, that's where the problem lies.
So DBAs are required to be registered.
DBAs are required to be registered.
And
Every
What
10
I'm-
that's her
years.
point, that when the enforcement case came, there was no furtherance of providing evidence that he had a valid DBA to work under that assumed name, right? That was registered with TREC.
Right.
And so,
DBAs aren't registered, well, they're listed under
DBAs
TREC. But was he paid under the
Registered
DBA?
We don't know for sure because nothing was looked at.
Well, they looked and he was paid
did.
under,
The staff said we interviewed the respondent. They did not look at it.
but they said he was not paid under the LLC or DBA. That's why it was
That's what
dismissed.
you're not hearing. They interviewed the respondent. They didn't look at the documentation to show where it was paid. But the person reporting it.
They
said
did
it
not
was
look at the
paid
document
there.
where it was paid.
Correct.
Right?
and that's a judgment call that they have, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when Commissioner Lerner speaks to this is the consistency of, and you've got various attorneys with different sets of perspectives and
Well,
judgments,
let
right?
me ask this.
Yeah.
Do we want to take this and have enforcement document and verify the expiration of every DBA on TREC's website?
I don't think, there's a lot of
But there's-
DBAs.
I mean, but
There's tens of thousands of them.
it's not impossible going forward because your DBA has to be registered every 10 years. When you register a DBA, you should be sending in the paperwork and you stick it in the thing of when it expires. Just the same as the state would do for your DBA.
The only way I could see this is if there's a complaint with the DBA, that might be something they look at, but yeah, I don't want to start tracking. We're tracking 240,000 licenses right now.
The way I would look at this is Mark's brokerage isn't called Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate Gary Green on a legal document. Mine isn't called CB&A Realtors on a legal document. We both have DBAs as those two things. But if I've got 200 teams, you've got 200 teams that are all under their own DBA, shit, I can't keep up with that. Much less ask the state to do it across the state.
Or
We
TREC.
just register the team name because that's what
Yeah,
the
see,
rule.
again, that's the registration or the DBA. That's,
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
we have three different things, an LLC, a DBA, and a registered team name.
And
So,
until January, a LLC has to be a licensed entity with a broker attached and all
I
that.
was there, yeah. We have 59 days.
So the second one, he did not register the LLC until after the complaint. That LLC was not in there. So then on the third one, he claimed that he had an umbrella with this LLC. Well, the guy's still not advertising under the right name. He has a website under a different name, no IABS, nothing. So, and he doesn't use the name that he claimed that he used in the complaint. And then the fourth guy admitted what he did wrong and he got in trouble and the rest of them didn't, and they were doing stuff wrong. So, does that seem fair?
You know, the word fair is probably not a good term when you're talking about enforcement. But, I mean, we questioned all five of those. And I think you can go back, I told this to someone last night at dinner, or maybe this morning at breakfast. There's not a single transaction I can't go back and look at and find something wrong. But, I mean, we looked at these five and we understand the process. Is it the perfect process? Absolutely not. But is the process that I think is fairly consistent? Yes.
I think we also had in the discussion when somebody makes a complaint with respect to unlicensed activity. You know, the burden of proof is, you know, you have a complaint about a certain entity practicing with an unlicensed entity. And then you're putting kind of the burden of proof on staff to go and figure out, okay, is it a current registration? Has there been any amendments? And the amount of work required for the amount of business entities that are registered is a lot.
But how many complaints do we get about that is the question. And then when I talked to Secretary of State, they said there's a way, I guess, that state agencies can get that information for free. What that process is, I'm not sure, but
Well, when we renew a business entity, we have to provide a certificate of standing with the Secretary of State, and it has to be within 21 days of renewing.
But
Lord help if it's day 24, you've got to
no,
get a
but
new one.
it's just that thing of the franchise tax. You can just copy whatever's on there and you turn it in.
Right.
From their website, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but sometimes the officers are totally different, because we were looking at that from one of the big.
Then they're committing fraud on their application because it says has ownership changed.
Right.
Yeah, but the officers and ownership is two totally
Yeah.
different things.
So,
And I
right.
think you'll never be able to get the owner information, the exact percentages from the Secretary of State.
Nor should you have to realistically, because in the eyes of the law, the entity is a person.
So then how are we verifying that each broker has,
Which gets to her point. I mean, how do you verify that somebody has, a 50% ownership in an LLC? The only way you can do that is if you submit the company agreement with the appendix that shows.
And that is required when you register a new business entity, you have to submit showing ownership.
but who's to
Am I
say that
wrong?
it
Is
changes
that-
tomorrow?
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on the business.
Then if it changes tomorrow, when you renew, then you have to say it changed or else lie.
But if,
And then if
you don't have
it,
to give that paperwork to show that it's different.
no, on the application, it has anything changed. And you either put yes or no.
Just like you did this past.
Exactly, twice.
Right, but we know people.
Cheaters are gonna cheat. We can't, I mean,
This is, I'm not challenging, I'm just curious. What do you think the risk is if someone changes it like the next day? Like, I mean, they're,
Nothing, but if you look at all these companies that have multiple LLCs and no oversight, there's a problem.
I agree if they have no oversight.
Yeah.
But that's not the LLC issue, that's the broker issue.
Correct.
Correct.
I mean, I know
Broker's
brokers
supposed to
with,
be overseeing that LLC because the broker's supposed to have 51% ownership.
no, they can have less than 10,
Less
they
than-
care $1 million,
Right.
But if, or be an officer or whatever.
Yeah.
And so do we know that that's there?
Yeah, well, they attest to it, just like when you renew your salesperson's license or your driver's license, you attest. You say, Scout's honor, this is still true. Now, I would think if something happened, it wasn't, that would be another penalty. But I mean, yeah, the whole renewal process, every time we renew, you attest to what you're saying is correct.
Even felonies.
Yeah. Now, I do think there's big confusion with DBA versus LLCs versus known as versus registering names. And maybe that's a discussion we need to talk about. But as far as, I mean, all 5 of these cases, we could Monday morning quarterback, but all 5 of them were pretty solid the way they approached it. And some of the consistency is, I promise you, if they call me and say, you did this, I'm going to say, okay, what do we need to do? And if I need to write a check and sign an agreed order, I'm not going to argue and go to SOA. I'm not going to. I'm going to,
Because we will stick it to you.
do you follow me?
As demonstrated
And I think
today.
a lot of it is, like the one that admitted it, he got it fixed. And I think that's what that advertising thing is
It's
going
like
to do.
9 out of 11.
Is going to get it fixed. And I hope everybody starts complaining on advertising. No, not that you have more work, but that's the only way it's going to get out. Yeah.
Yeah, the concern is obviously unlicensed activity, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to DBAs, geez, it's kind of hard to.
But if you have a complaint, at least try to get the information in writing, not somebody's attestation going, oh, okay, I did it.
Okay. If they have a complaint and I raise my hand, guilty, let me pay the fine.
That's one thing.
But if I say no, then they dig deeper.
Yeah. Or, I mean, not even that, but that, like, how hard is it to get a closing statement to see where the money's going?
It shouldn't be hard to, and again, come January 1st, we're gonna have a lot of that.
Right.
Where's the money going?
Exactly.
But I've got faith in the process. Do I think it's something we need to always monitor and change as things change? Yes. Do I think if we had a contest who read the most agreed orders, I might be beat by a commercial learner. Maybe. when we have something like that, ask the question. Because they'll tell you the process, and I guarantee you, they're batting a whole lot better than I would expect. Yeah.
And will this, some of this new technology allow us to, over time, make some of those things easier to know? I mean, ramp project.
Do you mean like
Well, I mean-
checking LLCs and that sort
Well,
of
I'm
thing?
just saying as an example, and again, I'm not in the camp that thinks that's our biggest problem, but but I'm just curious, like, if there were ability to bump up against the Secretary of State database or something,
Just have it auto check.
yeah, that kind of.
I think that sounds really neat.
I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying, some of this, I mean, a lot of this stuff's so time consuming, it's not practical, but at some point, if you get,
Yeah, if two systems can easily talk to each other, why would we not do
You
that?
would think, you would think.
Well, right, I mean,
well, right now,
that's what you would say about
Yeah.
fingerprinting and FBI.
Yeah,
well, I've said that before, right?
Biggest nightmare.
I agree with that.
But I like I mean, if we can, that sounds great.
Can we talk about criminal licensing for a second?
It's like,
Yeah, I guess that's it. Talk to me.
Department of Insurance.
Some of these, might have to add it later, but go.
Okay, I mean, first of all, like, I got an email from Mike a while back. It says when it comes to people that have received probationary licenses, a new applicant, this is not considered discipline. A probationary order remains on the website until their probation ends. For example, if a probationary order is for 4 years, the order will remain on our site for 4 years from the date the license is issued. So if we have somebody that has had forgery, racketeering, whatever it may be in their past, that's whenever their probation is over, after a year, after 2 years, that's gonna be pulled.
No, there's a difference between probation and probationary license.
Right, so if
There's a
it's,
difference.
yeah, if it's a new license, it's not considered discipline against an existing license. So that order is only gonna be up so long as they are on that probation.
So if they had a criminal past, that consumer is not gonna know that that ever happened.
Oh, that they were initially put on a probationary license, no, because it's not discipline. The only thing we have up there is official, like, formal discipline against their license.
But
So if they like came back later and committed those crimes, and we put them on an order for that, that would remain on the website.
That's because that's the probationary term, right? They did it. They got this probationary license. They didn't sort of reoffend, well, not reoffend's not the right word, but like they met the terms of their initial probationary license. And so then that goes away because it wasn't discipline. It was, hey, can you do this? Like you're on a set license with, we're watching.
So we decided that they've met the honesty, trustworthiness, and integrity for a
Right.
license, but we're kind of giving them a trial period, right?
Yep.
If they can make it past that, then they're good to go. So it's not just.
Defer to Judy.
Hypothetically, if they were to violate that, they'd be revoked.
Yes,
So
depending on the terms of their agreed order.
So can I ask a question on that note?
That they would be.
Do they have to be convicted before they're revoked?
That's all we can look at is convictions.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, look at just arrests.
It puts those probationary
Not saying somebody who visited the track meeting in May
licenses in the,
is up against something.
oh, no, I'm sorry, I was talking to people.
No, I was just saying because of the girl in May has now been arrested. a couple
Oh,
times.
she's been arrested again.
Yes.
Um,
Would never take action against somebody just for an arrest the way.
We've proven.
Even if we have her on probation, because whatever we wrote on her thing
She's
said,
got to be convicted.
Is this the lady from Houston?
a fully probated suspension would allow respondent to continue to work as a real estate broker, but would allow the commission to maintain an additional degree of oversight over her. And this last thing was theft of 30 to 150K.
Yeah, but you need to let the case get
But it's
adjudicated.
an arrest.
Yeah, we can't make the decision.
The
that she's
judge,
guilty.
only a judge
Has
can.
We're the
has
one
she
that-
turned it into y'all within 30 days?
Well,
She
of
wouldn't be
conviction.
required
We don't
to
wanna- I mean-
unless- Yeah, she wouldn't be required to just for an arrest.
Okay. And then what about this guy who's holding cocaine and broccoli that we just gave a license to? This guy for multi-state drug conspiracy that we just approved a license for. And this guy is a sex trafficker that we have a license to. I mean, that's not good.
Okay, I'm gonna muddy the waters. We're talking about probationary status. But you have a young man that did something 10 years ago that was not good. And then he applies for a license. He goes through the fitness determination. He jumps through all the hoops. He gets all the letters. He gets all the orders. And we issue him a probationary license. Has nothing to do with the probation. Has everything to do with what has happened in the past. That is also a type of license too, correct?
No, I'm sorry. say that
He
again.
is issued or I have a license, I get a DUI, I spend 3 days in jail. I renew, y'all renew my license as a probationary license because I had an offense.
Only if that was a felony.
Okay.
So you're saying the difference is just that what we do
You
is
can have a probationary
mirroring
license
a
without being on
probation.
supervision.
Yes, it's not
Correct?
mirroring it.
Okay, that's, I wanted to make that,
Criminal.
just because you have a probationary license does not mean you're reporting to a probation officer once a month.
Right.
Right.
Right, okay.
Right.
I wanted to just make
Yeah.
sure that
You
when you
could
see
still-
probationary license, don't think they have something pending. It could have been years ago.
Right.
Right, okay. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And we put a term of probation, TREC probation on there,
On notice.
on
And
the,
they have notified the broker within 14 days.
My problem is people like this, people don't know these are the people that are walking in their house. And if the consumer knew that these people were walking in their house, they'd have a huge problem with it. And we're testifying in court that our main mission is to make sure that consumers who use real estate brokerage services are protected and that agents will meet their fiduciary obligations. Ensuring the license holders are trustworthy and appropriately educated is one of the ways commission protects consumers. I mean, it's one of, like, went on to say the purchase of a house is sometimes the biggest financial investment a person will ever make in their lifetime. So it's important for the commission to provide protection for consumers. We're not protecting them. These are all recent.
But
These aren't 10 years ago.
Are these people we've seen? I mean, is that,
Not that we've
No.
seen, that
I
we,
mean, that we have taken action on, say, in the last 5 years?
no, we have not taken action.
yes,
we've given them licenses.
in the last year.
So at this point, TREC doesn't even know about them.
But we've
Yeah.
given them a license in spite of their history,
In
is
spite of
what
their
you're
history.
saying, right?
So,
No.
I mean, this one is from the United States Department of Justice, this guy.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
even know who we're talking
If I
about.
had more details, I might
but
be able.
I'd like the names. I'd like to, yeah.
They saying they
I
have a
don't know.
license
I don't
and now
know
the
if these
offense.
people-
Not in
They have
this
the
moment,
offense
He was
and now
just
the-
by the way.
I mean, he has multiple offenses.
He's
They
licensed.
could get it.
Yes.
He's currently licensed,
One is Christian Russell.
but
Well,
unless he was
let's not,
reported.
let's hold off on naming people in
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
right?
Senate Bill 510.
Well, it's also, I mean, look, and I don't know, because I've not seen any of this. I have no idea what this is, right? I mean, I know what you're describing as, but I haven't read it. We don't know. If we don't really want to bring, we didn't bring up the other person's name. Let's
Yeah.
not do that now.
Well,
You know, I
did
may
you turn
just-
that over to them?
Well, that's what
So
I
that
made
they
this,
could look at it before this time and we could maybe discuss.
I brought up
but-
criminal licensing so many times,
Okay.
Do they have that?
so I don't know.
And again, I mean, when you apply for a license, the fingerprints are ran, everything is ran, it is scrubbed, and
You're gonna have to catch for it.
Well, and I mean, a third of Americans have criminal history. There are a lot of our license holders who have significant criminal history, but we can fill in the blanks to those stories just with their names given to a May, and then we can kind of build out what was mentioned.
Or how we missed it?
Well, maybe we didn't miss it.
Maybe we
Right.
didn't.
if it's allegations, I mean, it just really depends
Yeah.
on
You want my
where you are, but
If they were honest, if they gave an explanation that made sense, I mean, there's a process.
But that gives us an opportunity to take a look at this, to see what's happening, to see how it matches our criminal history record checks, which, I mean, those aren't, theoretically, they're in real time, but that system we know is not perfect. It's good. It's the one that, statute tells us to use, and, we heard some feedback on that, but I think this gives you an opportunity, like, okay, she'll take a look and we can look at it. On initiatives for tomorrow, I know that criminal history, background checks, things like that is on one of the initiatives. And the hope with tomorrow's section of those initiatives, and we knew that enforcement would be one, which is why we did this presentation today. You can dial down, that's not the right word.
Drill down.
Drill down, thank you. What are the problems you're trying to solve? What are the issues you're seeing? And is it a change in process? Is it a change in statute? Is it something that's gonna go to a committee? But I think first seeing like, hey, here are the issues. And I think those naturally turn into initiatives in order to look at it. But we can't, we can't speak to this, but May can look at it. We can speak to these cases and the issues that come up and what you're seeing, or, if you saw anything in there where you're like, hey, I'm gonna use the amendment, and I don't have a position on the amendment whatsoever, but we know it was an issue in that case, which is they tried to execute essentially an amendment to a contract that was already closed, the deal was, and they were trying to, from one side, it was that we were trying to fix this thing and the title company was upset about it and it was an attempt to do something, but on the other side, it's like, well, why were you doing that in the first place? You're treading into dangerous waters there. It wasn't actually executed, that's, and ultimately I think what that ended up being was a judgment call, and could it have gone either way? Yes. And that's, equipping your enforcement attorneys with the ability to make that, deliberation and understanding and dialing down, we keep saying that, into it and looking at it and landing one way. And sometimes they get it wrong, sometimes they get it right. And, there's that faith in the system. But sometimes there's not a wrong or a right? But the thought behind this presentation was to go over that deep dive that the executive committee did, which I think, because I'm not ignoring what Commissioner Lerner is saying, I think this informs the initiatives tomorrow, right? And I think it also covers these emails, these cases. There was a lot of back and forth about at the executive committee level and with Commissioner Lerner. So the thought was, well, let's let everybody see, let's bring everybody in an open meeting, have this conversation, have this presentation. We've got May here as a resource. She's also an excellent resource she is the resource on criminal history. So lucky you, May, pointing you out here. But I think that's what you do with this presentation, and to the extent you have questions on any of the things that came up, she's here as a resource. But just in terms of maybe it's, well, there's this, and this, it's, well, let's, what are the issues and not the specifics, and then we start, that's where you formulate your initiatives.
Vanessa,
Yes.
when it comes to, I guess, crimes of moral turpitude, do you all get to hit after the conviction comes, or because an arrest, obviously they still have rights and you really can't do nothing with that until it gets adjudicated through the courts and what have you. So, or does it only happen when they renew?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
You get it real time?
Real time, as in like once the jurisdiction enters that information into the database, then we get that
You
information.
get a hit?
Yes.
And is it for Texas or for the entire federal offense, or
Each individual.
It's both.
Both?
We get it both through DPS and FBI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you also, am I right, do you run it at renewal as well?
We do.
So it's both, that's what she means, like you could get the hit in real time, but you definitely run at renewal.
So the cases that Leslie has right now are arrests, and you're not gonna get anything, right?
No.
You wouldn't.
If that's what they are, I haven't seen
Well,
it.
yeah, I don't know. I need to look at them. But if it is like, and we will see just an arrest, right? We can't do anything at that point. We have to
Right.
wait it out until.
It's on the radar though.
Right.
Question, at Arello, we heard that social security background checks are better than FBI background checks. Can we go to social security background checks?
Or at least look at, we had two different jurisdictions saying that.
I think what I heard was that there were agencies who did all of them, right? And I think some, you're right, had switched to just Social Security. Some did both. There were some statistics thrown out about how, FBI is this percentage, like a lower percentage, and I haven't verified any of this. So they went to Social Security checks. So that, I think, that could be an initiative of like, will you all explore the statistics associated with these checks and whether there's an option? Do we need to go to statute? Is a statutory change? All of that to explore, adding Social Security checks to it or switching. I think if you switch to, you're definitely looking at statute because statute specifically calls out DPS and FBI.
What if we add to?
Well, right. So I think that's something that you could ask staff to explore to the extent you think there's room for that. There's a problem that you want us to spend our time looking into that, which is great. Like that's the feedback we're looking for.
The one case we had today, what was his name? Cochran, whatever it was. He had an extensive, or a couple of them had extensive. Why did we get to the point that we only did something right when his license expired? How did we get to that point? Why wasn't something done before that?
Mr. Kershon?
Those were
There was an application
applications.
for a sales agent's license.
Right, I know that, but,
He wasn't licensed
oh,
before.
he was
He
not.
was
Yeah,
not.
he didn't
No, it
have
was
a
an
license.
application.
It was an application.
It was a
for it.
denial for,
Oh, okay.
why somebody would take that all the way to Soa on that.
I don't know.
Seriously, I don't understand.
You literally got out of jail.
Can we
5
get on the
minutes ago.
enforcement? All right, let's look at brokerage services working group, and I want to kind of eat this on one bite at a time. The purpose is to examine ways license holders may work for multiple brokerages, the relationship these different business models have, how it addresses, how it affects the occupations code. And I guess the big question is, does this mean even with consent of a sponsoring broker, a sales agent may engage in real estate brokerage on behalf of another? And the very first thing we looked at was expansion teams. Not the first thing, but it's the first thing on our list. And nobody really knew what expansion teams are. And we talked to several expansion teams, and they were very open. They told us the way they did it, and we don't think it implicates the 1101, the occupations code. They might not be advertising in complying with the advertising with the DBAs and team names. We think the current rules and laws address any concerns. Updated frequently asked questions on advertising, add information on broker responsibility.
Do you think
They're within the guidelines of the occupation code. It was just something we hadn't heard of.
does everyone understand what the expansion team is?
Basically, I live in El Paso, you live in Houston, Chance lives in Austin. And I have someone on my team working in your office and theoretically under your responsibility. But since I have a relationship with them, I get a piece of the pie. And the fact is, they wouldn't be in your office if it wasn't for me. And so I'm expanding my reach, but they're still under your jurisdiction, your responsibility.
Your responsibility.
No,
No.
his
They're
responsibility.
under whoever,
They're under each broker's responsibility.
Responsibility.
so it's more like a referral.
Yeah.
It's exactly, it's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's a referral network essentially.
Well, it's a LIFRO, but they're licensed under him.
No, I wouldn't even say they're a live.
No, because
No, I don't
LIFRO's
think
still
they're
under
LIFRO.
me.
Right.
Because they're prospecting, they're generating, they're doing real business.
Yeah.
They're just paying a cut of that to Ben Kenny,
And
to Ohio, or
and-
whomever it is. And some of these are, like Ben Kenny's team is in 23 states.
And like, even though they're under him, they might be getting some, get some motivation, some marketing tools or whatever through my company. Like maybe a Tom Ferry or whatever, but they're still his baby. And he's still responsible. I just get a piece of the pie because I introduced them.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be his E&O, it's gonna be his.
Right.
it's a
Full thing.
referral.
Yeah, it's a referral.
Yeah.
It's a referral network, but it's not LIFRO.
Right. That's right.
That was about.
And so it sounded really bizarre until we kind of peeled back the onion. It was really, I mean,
Yeah.
kind of boring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we
Exciting
kept thinking there was something else that,
I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't operate that much different than any team in any brokerage,
Right.
realistically. The only difference is that the team leader's somewhere else.
Right.
Just depends how it gets.
That's really it.
well, it's gonna get paid, the
Yeah.
agent's gonna get paid by him in that example.
Right.
And then just like any other DA, they can direct where their funds go.
So we don't think there's really needs to be anything done there except, maybe find a less boring name. Transaction coordinators, that was probably the most enlightening thing we did.
Yeah, it's,
We talked to the little girl and I forgot her name, even though Madison or McKenzie. And I've known her transaction coordinating business for several years. And she has went to totally unlicensed transaction coordinators. And if Texas has done something really well, it's defined what unlicensed people can't do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the question was, I'm a licensee, I'm doing a transaction coordinating for multiple brokers. And so that got really muddy, really quick. And so, I mean,
But why?
well, because I'm a transaction coordinator and I am,
if you're a licensed.
I'm a licensed transaction coordinator and I'm transacting him for a listing. And then your brokerage has the purchaser and I'm working for him.
So it's this whole,
And it's
who's got the,
like,
Yeah.
and
Confidentiality gets weird.
yeah, and just the perception. He saw my
representation
first offer,
all that.
he saw the backup offer.
Yeah.
He wrote a backup offer and I'm with all the information. And I'm gonna be honest and,
And
yeah,
it's never a problem.
Until it's.
still it's a problem.
What you said.
Inter-office communication.
And so that was the interesting part of that one lady we talked to. It's like, I think she had originally had license.
She did.
And then she's like, nope, came back to it and said, hey, it's just,
So we were almost, kind of, if you're unlicensed, go for it. If you're licensed, maybe just under your one brokerage.
That's my TC is,
It
she
is,
can only transact, she can only coordinate inside of our brokerage.
yeah.
And-
And that's how we do it, to the extent we know.
Yeah,
And is
right,
that-
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
In terms of this one, transaction coordinators, this whole thing started because we started drafting an article to clarify. And as we clarified,
They got less clear.
it was so muddy in this whole, what about a license holder working for a brokerage to do transaction coordinating, but they're doing other brokerage activity for their own broker. So, I think
But-
we need to be able to draw a line and say, you can't do that.
But
If that-
is what they're doing technically considered an active brokerage?
Well, it depends.
Where does it,
Depends on what their duties.
you know what? If they're unlicensed, you don't even have to worry about because they can't do brokerage activity.
Yeah.
The problem is I'm a transaction coordinator and about 8 years ago, our legal 1, legal 2 was full of, I was just trying to be helpful violations. And I'm just going to try to be helpful. And next thing you know,
You're a property manager.
I'm one, so unlicensed unless you're for one, unless you're working for your brokerage.
So unlicensed, no brokerage activity. If you're licensed, only do it for your broker.
One brokerage.
So that's the best practice.
Or just have here's what I do and don't do anything other than that.
Right, because we can't
Like
regulate.
I can fill out documents, I can,
And
these kinds of things.
We can,
Set up
Non-brokerage activity.
title,
Right.
Yeah.
coordinate inspections, those kinds of things.
The issue
Just don't negotiate.
If you're a broker,
Don't talk
you should work
dollars.
for both, and I think that's where it's very important to start defining what a broker is.
again, that's
Yeah,
another.
But I'm just saying. if
Yeah.
Well,
you're
that's
a
true.
broker, You can be a transaction coordinator.
Well,
You can work as-
that came up and, so So you're the transaction coordinator, associate, or well, broker, let's just say.
Work for you,
Yeah.
I mean, as associate.
How does that-
and then do
Well,
something.
you know, then it's like, well, what's that I mean, that person could have a whole lot more liability than what they're perhaps imagining they have. And then, of course, you know, can you really, I don't know what the E&O options are for somebody like that. Just like if you're, and I'm sure we have people doing this, sadly, I don't know about that. Just like if we have people licensed with us that are using a licensed, you know, transaction coordinator somewhere else. I mean, if we knew about it, we would stop it, but let's just say they are. You know, what's the exposure there, right? I mean, from both sides.
But the recommendation was best practice, a licensed sales agent perform transactions for one, they're sponsoring broker only.
Absolutely.
That's what our message is gonna,
I agree
we
totally.
kind of agreed that
That's
that's
like,
what it
well,
will
it's
be.
like Chance said, I mean, you know, that's really, you know, up to do anything, I mean, you're working with nitroglycerin, you know, to do something different than that, you know, because it,
But that's best practices.
Yeah.
If you're licensed,
I
one
agree.
broker only.
But also, you're only allowed to get paid by your broker. So if they're working for another brokerage. it's
Well,
really not-
well, there you go. And that's another,
That we're gonna talk about next.
Yeah.
Are y'all good where this kind of went? Chance?
Maybe.
Look like I'm on meth. Talk to me.
Generally speaking, though, the broker isn't the person paying the TC. It's the agent is paying the TC.
Mhm.
As a service to the agent. Not the- It may come off the DA, the agent's pay on a DA. But it's
He's
not,
answering to the broker.
but the broker's paying the agent's then paying the TC.
and the question is, can the agent do that?
Well, but
I mean, they can do it, but I mean. the
it's
question
coming
is-
out of the agent's part, but the agent's not paying him.
Why?
Or are they licensed? Let's not.
Regardless, if they're licensed or not. They're getting paid for a service
Okay,
that they provide.
but if they're licensed, it's got to come through the
Because
brokerage.
it's a brokerage
Unless it's a
activity,
written-
maybe.
But
And
it's
let-
not a brokerage activity.
Well, then there you go.
TC, as I know it, is not a brokerage activity.
Okay,
So that, maybe that gets to their specific agreement.
Right.
And I think that's what, you know, going back to, we can only regulate brokerage activity, right?
Right.
So if, you know, I think what's recognized is, wow, as a license holder, it's pretty easy to wade into the waters of brokerage activity because it's what you do, right? But in terms of truly, like, if you're looking at a transaction coordinator and what should be done, that could be done without that license, we can't regulate, we couldn't regulate a license holder who's not engaging in brokerage activity, which a lot of that stuff is not. It's administrative in nature is what we understand. So that's why, you know, it's considered to be a best practice for, and here we're specifically on a licensed sales agent, to only do it for their broker, because then everything is really on the up and up. They're doing work for their broker. If they cross over from transaction coordinator duties, you typically think of into brokerage activity, they're still good because they're working within their brokerage, they've got the license, et cetera. Now, if somebody, you know, there's other recommendations. So if you've got a licensed agent who works for a transaction coordinating service, they could go inactive as like a safety mechanism if all they do is transaction coordinator. But really, it's looking at that, you know, I think there's the known that people likely dip their toe into the brokerage activity water when they have that license and they're used to doing this business. And they kind of overstep outside of transaction coordinator duties, which we think of as administrative. But I think to Commissioner Brown's point, we can't regulate the payment for sort of administrative services because it's not within our jurisdiction.
but if they're doing no brokerage activity, it doesn't matter if they're licensed, unlicensed,
That's
who
right.
pays them.
Right,
If they're not,
That's right.
if it's defined as non-brokerage activity.
right. I think
But if
there's,
they're doing
I think when you
brokerage
get
activity,
into brokerage activity, you get out of TC and you start talking about a true
look,
admin, like an administrative assistant.
Right, and that's.
Like technically, and this is gonna sound convoluted, but just go with me for a second. Technically, my wife is my admin, but she's also a licensee. And so if she needs to talk about dollars and cents, she needs to negotiate, she can do those things. But I don't let my TC do that, even though she's licensed.
You know,
She orders photos, she orders signs, she puts shit in MLS, she fills out documents.
but if.
That's what she does.
But if she is, and she's a license holder.
Mhm.
Right, so if there was a little bit of crossover, it's
you're covered.
a better practice because she's licensed and she's just doing work for
What
you.
would the crossover
But
do?
my point to the fact that if my transaction coordinator, let's just say that she was working for one of Mark's agents, and all she did for Mark's agent was what she does for me, I don't really see a problem with that.
Well, maybe it needs to be best practices as sales agents performing brokerage services
Right, that'd be the,
should work for
that'd be
everyone broker.
the,
That's,
Does that make more
That's not
sense?
Yeah, that makes way more
transaction
sense.
Yeah.
Because that's where we were coming from.
yeah, that's right. I mean, and that's the scenario we were talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if they're unlicensed, I mean, they can do whatever they
right,
want.
exactly.
If they're not doing broker, okay. Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Wait, so wait, I'm sorry.
You got all that?
We figured it out.
Don't mix it up now.
What did you just say?
We said best practice, a licensed sales agent performing brokerage services as transaction coordinator, broker services, should only do it for one sponsoring broker. But if you're not doing brokerage activity,
Yes,
it doesn't matter.
right, which I think is traditionally what transaction coordination has been.
Right.
But
But,
it's not brokerage activity.
It's just the gray of wading into the water, so you better
right.
not.
So I mean, I think we can, and certainly we can communicate to this effect of,
Yeah, we can define
Here-
it that way because there's a lot of real estate terms that people sort of, define in their own way or however. But if we define it that way, then
Agreed.
so that seems to
So-
be a communication.
So when you write the article, wouldn't you just say, this is what a transaction coordinator does, and these
Yes.
would be the actions that would cause you to cross the line into
I think you go
brokerage?
the other way.
Maybe
I
go
think
the
you
other
lay
way.
out what is brokerage activity.
Okay, and then say
That way
you
you're not
cannot,
trying to
yeah,
encapsulate.
but that's the idea.
This is what you don't do as a TC.
What you really do is you hand this to Summer.
and run with it someday.
Good luck.
Where do you go?
Well, these are jobs that have been created,
Well, it may take it till
and
summer.
they're being created right now that we didn't even see a few years ago. So
Good
Yeah, well, that's
efficiency. It's a form of efficiency. It's a great service.
I think
It's just leverage, that's all it is.
like Chances and like Marks, and they got it done. It's the little mom and pop now that has 2 or 3 agents and they want to try to save their agents some time. I think this is the article, I think that's who the article's gonna help. Is those people that don't have the structure to do it internally.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, to help us too, because then if we have people who are saying, well, I want to do this, that, and the other, it's like, no, this is,
Because guess what?
we,
Live
Just
in
like,
best
just like
practice.
Lee Warren will tell you that when the market slows down, everybody becomes a property manager. When the market slows down, everybody becomes a TC too.
Yeah.
that's right, yeah, that's true.
So, and I don't bring this up to like open a whole new can.
Sure you do.
Yes, you do.
I
but
do.
they're going to.
Here it comes.
That's
Here
right.
it comes. In 3, 2, 1.
So you mentioned broker associate, and that seems different here. I know, I like.
I thought that was tomorrow.
It is, but I'm just bringing this up, so if you want to talk about this in your initiatives tomorrow, but
Okay.
a broker associate is really a broker.
Yeah.
And so they can use their license to do things where they want unless you have something in your policies and procedures that says no, and they could engage in transaction coordination that is not brokerage services as well. I'm just making that distinction that they're not, it doesn't.
I don't think the
feel
license
very
type
the
matters. I think the activity matters.
Yeah,
Yes,
think
but we're
so.
talking about the liability, you're like, well, then there's broker associates and the liability that's being, to be mindful, I think that conversation is
well, you're
what's
right. I
happening.
mean, you're right.
So just keep that in mind. See, it's not a huge can. It's just that little broker associate.
So if I hire a transaction coordinator.
Usually
she'll
make
be
much better on
associates. I'm covered.
Because you use people in your own office.
Yeah.
What is a broker associate? We used to have realtor associates and did away with that.
So it's just it's a broker who works for a brokerage that's not the
Right.
sponsoring
They act
broker,
as a
right?
sales.
They're not the designated
But in terms of,
sponsoring broker.
and in terms of like a regulatory capacity, they hold a broker's license. It's no different than any other broker's license. So if they get in trouble, it's under their license.
And that's gonna be definitely an initiative.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I mean,
agree.
it's a conversation that's happening. I just want to remind you, like, we're really focusing right now on sales agents, and to the extent you want to talk about broker associates in this capacity, it might be a little bit of a different conversation, might not be. I just want to make sure, as you're thinking about it, this is one of the things, because we're going to talk broker associates tomorrow. So maybe that can opens tomorrow. I just want to bring it.
Well, I think as long as we keep it with the activities.
Agreed.
Well, there's not much you can do, right? I mean, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, because they're gonna have to make choices.
Yeah, but it's not the tie, I mean, I think there's a tendency to tie back the sort of the civil side or the, brokerage reputation side of a broker associate back to the brokerage. But in terms of license and regulation,
It stops.
it's living,
I agree.
it's its own thing. And that's something that there's a conversation about happening. I mean, this is happening, but it just, as a reminder, when we look at things like this. Now I'm gonna be quiet.
Sure open that can of worms and get quiet.
I have nothing more to say.
Yeah, just pull the pin out of that grenade.
Summer, do you have enough for where we're at
Oh, yeah.
on the activity?
Yeah.
Why does this article think, okay?
I mean,
Where are we?
Yeah, it's been written. It's just a matter of how to clarify, really.
Well, and I think, what else do we want to do in terms of maybe a short video with that and other pieces?
The next one was, I think, our preacher says, say amen if you agree, say oh me if it's an issue. I think there were some oh me's when we opened this. Showing agent. Showing is a real estate brokerage activity. That was all defined in 2012. 20-story office building, the lady next door can't open it for a potential client because you're not licensed. Showing agents are frequently utilized. The platforms are not engaging broker activities, so it doesn't require a license.
Can you define
Yeah.
a showing agent?
Okay, a showing agent is,
I'm talking about.
I signed up for one of a showing service, almost like an Uber agent, I won't say the names, and they call me and I go to your listing and open it for these purchasers to see it. And now I'm licensed under Stewart, but I show your listing. And I open the door and that's all I do. Well, it got to be, if they ask me a question, am I gonna answer it? And if I answer it, do I put my broker in jeopardy? Are you in, anyway? And then the big thing was, they Venmo me $30. Well, they didn't Venmo me through my broker. They Venmo'd me directly. And I'm not saying, but there's a broker in El Paso that's really pretty nice guy. And I promise you, his agents have got $20 from another agent for showing their house. And all of a sudden, it was like, everybody's happy till someone's unhappy.
Yep.
And they find out I got $30, didn't go through Stewart. And they call a May.
There's also an interesting spin on here from a general liability insurance standpoint, given the confines of the listing agreement. If you're using a Texas Realtors listing agreement, and like I'm being sued right now for a lady that fell down in an open house. She didn't really fall down. She basically jogged away, and we've got it on video. But nonetheless,
I digress.
I'm getting sued by a lady who fell down in an open house. But what if it was an agent at another brokerage that was holding that house open, and then who has liability? And yeah,
Or what if Uber agent stole something out of the house? Who's a liability second?
There's that too.
Well, let's think about the regulatory. When we say liability, let's think about who's gonna be holding the bag from a regulatory standpoint, right? Because if you get sued in
Listing
civil
agent,
court,
yeah, they're
The
gonna,
listing agent.
that doesn't matter to us so much, right? Us as
Right.
a commission.
We talk about an article, we talk about rulemaking, but y'all, the toothpaste is out of the tube. This is going on,
yeah, no,
I mean,
But we do have a rule that you have to pay through your broker.
right.
Yeah, but there are brokerages in Northeast Texas who only, the broker has the listings, but his agents show they're only buyer agents.
Well, we're talking about if my agent came and got on this app and said, okay, so-and-so's driving down this area now needs a showing on your listing.
We get it all the time.
Yeah, or through
All the time.
Facebook or through an app, like I work for myself and have no agents and nobody, but I'm out of town. And somebody wants to see one of my houses, you know, can I pay someone through the app, through Facebook, through Venmo, whatever,
4 or
just
5 of
to,
those posted on
just
our
to do a
Facebook page.
favor?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, you can't do this, then what it does is it sends people to Facebook, right? I mean, I think it's gonna be very hard to regulate.
It's gonna be almost impossible to regulate because it's already going up. I think we need to just remind everybody that if I have a company like that, Uber agent, and I hire Renee as one of my showing agents, I'm gonna have to have an agreement with her broker that I compensate her. Does that make sense? And then I can do that.
I think, you know, I mean, now that's another thing where we have a policy that says, you know, only if you're gonna have somebody to do that, you know, it's gonna need to be inside the company.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now again, you know, that's something we can do to the person, the one person, you know, operator. Maybe that's worth I mean, you know, those are choices you make is all I'm saying, you know.
But can we do an article saying you should keep it inside the brokerage? I don't think we can.
No, I'm just saying,
No,
if the
but-
broker ends up having to make a decision, whether you got 1,000 people or one person, you know, your choices are,
Here she comes again.
yeah, is good.
But Scott, if you're gonna go out of town and you have, if somebody calls you and wants to see a listing, any listing, it doesn't have to be yours, right? That's your buyer. And you call Shawami and you say, hey, I need somebody to go show this house. You're 100% right. Shawami should have an agreement between Century 21 Edge
I
and
agree.
Shawami on how that compensation is gonna happen.
That's right.
But,
That's how, I mean, that's the
and
solution.
maybe that's what the article needs to say.
Well, okay. The article needs to say, it needs to stay within your brokerage,
No, no.
The broker and Shawami. and I'm
or
just gonna-
whatever
The
the.
showing service.
The showing service, one of them, the big ones, one of the big ones is called,
Yeah, that's
Is-
what we talked.
is there has to be an agreement between those two on how the person's compensated.
But are they not, is that not making a deal to do brokerage services, like a written authorization to do brokerage services?
Yes,
Or another brokerage.
Yes, it
Which
is.
is the ultimate
Yes, it is.
conclusion of this group was,
Yeah, well, I mean, again, that's back to, you may be exposing yourself beyond the compensation thing to other risk, but that's,
Maybe the article needs to, you know, besides compensated through the broker, you have the liability issue.
right, that's what I'm saying, those are two
What is
different.
the liability issue?
What is the liability issue?
No, I'm just saying. the
Oh, yeah.
article is saying-
Hypothetically, yeah.
Right.
But it's the same liability if I have a listing and an agent from El Paso wants to show it, but they're not gonna drive to Paris, Texas. Would you go open the house for me for my buyer to go take a look?
It may be a little bit different.
Well, but the liability is.
Right.
Well, it's your liability because
Right.
you opened the door and did all that.
That is correct.
I mean, at
Because
least,
you're not, I mean, you don't just
right.
open the door.
Right.
There's advice and counsel
Well, that's back
somewhere.
to that earlier conversation, but at least your listing, your brokerage, I mean, now, you know, I guess in theory, before you showed the thing, the question would be, what is your arrangement with this other agent, right?
The big concern is the liability.
Yeah.
But I think what everybody's missing is,
Not for us.
Not for
not for TREC,
Not from TREC standpoint, from my
but
standpoint.
the
as a
biggest
broker.
thing is getting money from somebody besides your broker.
Right, but if you initiate a process where that money goes to your broker, so you're saying that the platform would pay the money to the broker?
Well, the platform could pay the money to the agent if they had an agreement to the broker to disperse. That's what
Like
Chance
title
was saying.
companies
That's what
do.
he's saying.
Title companies do it all the time.
Title companies do it all.
What do y'all think? So this is
Or-
one of the. oh.
Does that make
I'm
sense?
sorry, no.
Abby? Does that,
Yeah.
What say you, Abby?
I'm not getting a good answer from Vanessa, okay? I'm going.
Yeah, okay.
He's enjoying this.
I think we call this forum shopping.
Let's see what they say.
So,
Okay.
we don't regulate the platform, but we do have a rule that says that if you engage in brokerage activity, you're supposed to be paid by your broker, unless your broker has said in writing it's okay to pay you directly. So if that's what you're talking about, like just reiterating, this is what the rule says, I think we could go that direction. Of course, we can't require the platform to do
No.
anything, but
But if you're gonna be paid from Uber agent, and it needs to go through your brokerage, or your
just a
brokerage
reminder
needs
that
to,
compensation for brokerage services, like
right.
it's outlined in the rule.
Yes.
Well,
Be
and
broker
and
unless
for a
your
whole
broker
lot of
says
people, understanding that showing is a brokerage service, that'll be an aha for some people, notwithstanding the fact it's, been that way, as well as
Brokerage
transaction coordination. There's gonna be just the fact you write about it and you define it, 100,000 of the people that in theory will read it will go, really? I didn't know that.
But maybe if two people
Especially
read it and don't end
how
up
many are
screwing it up.
recently licensed.
So the platform owner told us that they have an agreement with the state of Oklahoma that an email goes to the sponsoring employing broker about agents working for showing, as a showing agent, and money going straight to the agent.
So it's possible.
But does it comport with what you've been saying about,
I think it's something.
your
you have to-
agent can only do work for the broker? For
What do
one
you,
broker, for your, so
For
you're a
that,
sales agent, you can
They're
only
sponsored
engage
brokers.
in, you can only engage in brokerage activity.
Well, and in this case, in a roundabout way, you are. You're
But your
doing
broker
brokerage
is giving you
activity, which is
permission.
showing the house, and the other broker has given your broker permission to get paid for it.
Yes, but that's
I mean-
exactly isn't that?
So that goes back, I think, to our original question, which was, can you, with consent of your broker, perform brokerage activities on behalf of another broker? And so I think the consensus from the group when we last met was just flat out no, and that informed our answers on each of those categories. So for TC, for showing agents, we said, no, you can't do that. So I'm hearing a little bit of a.
No, you're right. Well, that's no,
Which
but.
is, it's fine. Either
It
direction is
depends.
fine, just.
But you
But if you make
one or
an
the other.
exception for this, why not make an exception for the
For
TC
everything.
Well, it's one or the other.
Right, it's one
or the expansion teams?
You don't have to solve this today.
Right.
No, but I still
We are
think,
solving it before we leave.
I still think no is mostly the right answer, but
I do too.
with some exceptions, well,
I don't know. I'm saying I think it's the right answer. Now, there is this question of, is that, best practice no, or is that a regulatory no? I guess, I think it's a straight up best practice now. But
for purposes of like, and kind of handling it from a staff perspective, seems like you could go to a couple of different routes. You could treat this as an initiative for 2024 to unpack further. You could hand it to the new broker responsibility advisory committee to unpack. But I think if you did that, you would be kind of commissioning them to come up with an answer that you may or may not agree with.
well, that's true. Very true.
So, but
Boys wish for.
But you don't have to accept their answer.
you don't have to accept it, but I think you have to be willing to receive what they have to say. I do think it's a big enough issue that it needs to, that you're gonna wanna hear from people on that.
He also said he had people that do a closed organization for larger brokerages, that everybody stays within the same brokerage.
Yeah,
Sure. They
kind of white label it inside the
Right.
company.
The best practice is you do brokerage services for your sponsoring broker only. If any brokerage services are performed with another broker, there better be very specific.
And that's, oh.
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
And then we, if we do something like that, we'll hear from people that don't
Mhm.
like it. We won't have to worry about that.
Maybe we throw an article out and just see.
You see what, get feedback, right?
Like a survey?
No.
No, like an article.
Say, we're about to
I love
announce this
survey.
Well, yeah,
January 25.
well, no, so that
Oh, I see where this is going.
it's slow roll.
Going in.
So, I mean, I think the conversations we've had
Maybe I
internally
make it
and with
27.
the chair have been, this topic is relevant to daily practice. And so the more stakeholder input you receive from all different sides and not just, don't take away our ability to do this, I think it's important to get perspective from everyone is to, maybe you do move it to BRAC. Maybe, in Summer's communications, like, did you know that, this group met and they, have been talking about it and here's some of the things that we're hearing. What's your, make sure you're providing your input, your perspective. I mean, we know that this is a group that will respond, right?
My only problem with moving it to BRAC or anything to ESAC is, as a commission, if they come back and their opinion is work for one broker only, no exception, or you can work for multiple brokers, are we ready as a commission to adopt a very specific rule?
You don't have
And at this point, I don't think we're ready. I think we need more information from the shareholders before we send it to them.
So then maybe I am gonna go to initiatives.
Sorry.
I keep punting it to tomorrow's conversation. That's gonna be done by noon.
Well, if
But-
it becomes an initiative, then it's basically, you can turn it into a workshop issue. You can have us write something up with all of the decision points that you can think through. And we basically are punting it to a larger conversation.
Well, right, it's still, I mean, it sounds like people like the idea of keeping it as a commission item and not necessarily to go to an advisory committee. That's what I'm generally hearing.
Yeah, I think.
And that makes sense because it'd be the commission's position. This one seems a little bit different, but it also sounds like everyone's seeing this feedback from the group, with the exception of the members of the group for the first time. And it sounds like there's a desire to get some public feedback, stakeholder feedback. So that might be the initiative, is for staff to, generate communications and solicit feedback, and then this commission workshops it in August or when, I don't know if February is too soon, but like, maybe it's not, like, so then the commission itself uses its workshop time to have reviewed all these recommendations, all the stakeholder input, and, reach a conclusion on its own, and we put out the articles.
I agree. Go ahead.
I want to, because you're saying, put it out there and get stakeholders' opinions. What is the question you're asking the stakeholders? What is it you're looking for?
I don't know. What are you looking for?
That's what we're
Formulate the question
establishing on the
first.
initiative. I think, I don't want to come up with something and then give the stakeholders 60 days on comments. This is a big rock we're moving. We're looking at restricting brokerage activity to one activity, period, or one activity,
One brokerage, which you've already done.
Well, what you did at the top of the page, but then when you got to the bottom of the page, it starts to look a little bit different. And that's what's hard about this, right? There's a negotiated rulemaking process. I'm not sure if you want to dive into that, but I tend to agree. But I think what maybe the is to gather information about you've already gathered sort of what's been going on as a group, but like to get stakeholder feedback, like if showing agents, if that option went away, what does that mean? I don't know, I'm making this up right now because I'm standing here.
Kind of pros and cons.
Yeah, I think so. And then I think you'll get an idea of how many people are doing this and what the position is, because.
The people that suffer by it going away are the people that are in smaller brokerages that don't have resources.
Well, that's important.
If you're in a brokerage that has 500 people in it, you can find somebody to go show a house for you and pay them $20.
Yes.
That's a
But
great
if
point.
you're in a brokerage that has 2 people in it,
It's hard.
and one of them you're married to and you're both on the beach,
Yeah.
it comes real hard.
So,
Well, you're gonna be showing it.
Yeah, she's staying.
Sorry.
That's exactly right.
so if you want, you can digest this overnight, and then tomorrow it can be on the table for discussion.
It's a survey. Yeah.
But, just pointing out what the group met about and discussed and.
All right.
This next one's gonna be fast.
The last thing we have is future workshops and committee meeting dates. For 24.
Okay, I'm gonna leave this one, I promise. We should be out of here by at least 5:30.
Okay.
Kidding.
At least.
On the very last page of your materials for the commission meeting, you always have what has now been kind of torn up, written on, instead of this calendar thing. It's also up there. So we are currently in the November 6th, 7th slot, so no talking about that. February of 2024 is set because we do our commission meeting and workshop connected to when Texas Realtors has their winter meeting. So that we have more visitors in town and people can participate in both. And that leads us to the May meeting, which, by the way, the goal of this discussion is to set the meetings for the year. So really, May, August, and November. And I want to say on the front end that what we typically do is schedule a commission meeting and a workshop. And so I want you to be able to reserve your time in advance for that. I also want to warn you that if history proves true in the future, then there is an occasion where the workshop is canceled. And the reason for that is simply when there's not enough content to warrant the second day. And
That's always okay.
That's always okay. Well, we try to do that with as much advance notice as possible, but I just wanted you to know about that. So our next meeting that we need to schedule is in May.
So if we do that and we're on the road in May, we probably wouldn't do a workshop.
We will not have a workshop in May, right, because we will be traveling. And I wanted you to just know what we're planning for that May.
Yeah, that's good.
We are shopping for a location and a date, like right now. We are looking at doing the DFW area. We are focusing on the Las Colinas area because it is close to the Metro Tech's local board and also close to the DFW airport, I think. Is that right? Is it close
That
to
is
the
true.
airport?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
I just get lost in the DFW area. I don't know where anything is.
Too many names for
There's
things.
a place right near the airport.
The freeway changes names every 3 miles. I don't get it.
A lot of things that, well, if you have a suggestion, send it to us.
They
'Cause
do that this
We're
year.
looking
Please do that.
for
That's right.
suggested places. And more than anything, I wanted you to pencil these dates as options. Because it will be a one-day meeting, because we are negotiating price, we're not married to a Monday, Tuesday scenario.
Right.
The dates we're looking at are somewhere between May 14th and 17th, and also the 20th and 21st. We're sticking with those dates, just so you know, our insider baseball,
14,
14th through 17th,
okay.
that week, but not that Monday because the 12th is Mother's Day. So we were hoping that no one needed to travel on Mother's Day, so we're reserving the 13th. So 14th through 17th, or the following week, the 20th or 21st. After about the 21st, all the local schools get out of school.
Yeah.
And so that becomes hard on staff to travel.
Yeah.
So that's why we're sticking with those. Can't do it the week before because NAR is in DC. And if we're trying to get people involved from the local community, then we don't want that conflict.
Yes.
So those are our dates. As soon as we have more information on where and when, we will let you know. But if you have
But that's good
opinions on
information.
a specific hotel, we'll put it in our mix for negotiating. Yeah.
And NAR is not a big deal for the commission, but I guarantee you, all the local leadership for the associations, they will be there. And that's, yeah, being outside the area, that's what we.
And is that the week of the 6th?
Yes.
That's the week of the 6th, right? So we're looking at the following week, avoiding Monday after Mother's Day,
Right.
and then the following Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, that gets us to August. Yeah, so last August was the meeting where we scheduled a workshop, but it ended up being canceled. I'm not making any promises on that front for this August, but we have that right now tentatively scheduled. They're just kind of our traditional dates for the 12th and 13th of August. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Somebody's gonna have to kick me and keep me awake because I just got off a plane from India.
Oh, gosh, that's so sad for you. We can do that.
Are we in the first,
Somebody kick me.
are we in the
Every
first
5
day of
minutes.
school
Mhm.
zone with that?
We are. Can one of y'all look up first day of school of AISD?
I don't believe they have finalized the calendar.
Are you serious?
We're voting on it.
The opinion survey is open for you to vote on Schedule A or Schedule B.
Okay.
So that will, for Plan A for Austin ISD, that is the first day of school.
Okay.
Either the 12th or the 13th, and then the alternative is the 20th. We're not looking first, I believe, but they have not finalized.
So
even the school
district has
Data point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I did not say that earlier.
No, that's, I think, let's see, do y'all have availability the week before?
Yes, either one. Well, you don't probably.
That's harder.
Harder, August 5th, 6th?
Yeah, that's much harder.
Okay.
Janice won't be here.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna be out. What about the 19th, 20th? I'm just
Yeah.
wanting options to confirm later.
That's
Or
fine.
days if you want to move.
Yeah, I mean, either
I don't
one.
know that you want to.
I'm open.
19th, 20th of August?
I can do that.
Yes?
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 weeks, when school started, it made sense to not be traveling.
It makes sense not to be traveling. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. If we can avoid the first week of school, then we might be good. Oh, yeah, because, well,
He's here.
you're in town, but I
I'm mad.
was flipping.
That's what my mom told me.
I was thinking that what you meant was you may be like vacation traveling.
Right, so when
before
kids
school
are in
is out.
school, your life becomes more predictable.
Yes.
Right.
Same wavelength.
Which is
Okay.
easier for travel.
So
Yes, easier for travel for this stuff because you're not doing kid travel.
I think then what we will likely do is settle on the 19th, 20th. What I want to do is double check with Amber because she's our queen of scheduling. Just make sure we don't have any conflict there. Because it sounds like that's better than the traditional 12th and 13th.
I always clear my calendar for TREC.
You always clear a calendar for TREC? I do too. I do too.
You're probably gonna get commissioner of the year.
Okay, lastly is November of 24. That's the next fiscal year, and so we don't actually have that on the calendar. Our traditional days, and y'all may not have, well, I'll just say it. Our traditional days are the 12th and 13th of November. However, the 11th and 12th, that's a Monday, Tuesday. But the 11th is Veterans Day, and that's a state holiday, so staff will not be working that day. So we could shift it to the 12th and 13th, Tuesday, Wednesday. We could also do the 4th and 5th the week before. The 5th is Election Day. So I don't know, if that may be a challenge. Some of you may work polls and that sort of thing.
Well, tomorrow's election day too.
Yep.
That's right.
I'm good for the 4th and 5th.
Yeah, but this is
Okay.
the big one.
First week's.
This is the big one.
Yeah.
Okay, so so I had one vote over here for, he likes the earlier day.
That's fine.
Like 4th, 5th.
I'm good with that. I'm an early.
I-
You're in charge of the
I always
whole
vote
thing.
early.
I'll just
anyway.
give my acceptance speech from the hotel lobby.
Okay, okay. Is there anybody who would prefer the 12th and 13th?
I'm good either way.
You don't care? You want? No.
Next year's all right.
Oh, yes, you will be.
You'll be
Yeah, you
here.
will.
This is in 24. This is
24, yeah.
Check that calendar. Okay, so what I hear is that we prefer
We're
the
not done
fourth
with
and
you
fifth.
yet.
Okay. So we're open to.
Your
the 12th and
sentence,
13th.
I mean, term.
There is no good behavior early release on this, okay? Yeah. 4th and 5th of 24.
Of 24. Yeah. Okay. We'll double check all that with Amber, and then if at all possible, we'll try to confirm that by tomorrow. Is that possible? Okay. This concludes my presentation.
Okay, you got done before 5:30, so that's very good.
I have one question, totally off topic. But thinking about Mr. Lopez today, coming from the commercial side of things, I know it's a small pool of our licensees are from the commercial side. But if he was a commercial broker or inspector or anything else, and before he ever got to us, he had gone in front of a person or a body that understands the residential side, can that person with commercial side petition or request someone who's got purely commercial background?
I get SOA.
I guess, or is that like a fair argument that they have? Like, well, you put me in front of these residential folks and they didn't get my business and I don't feel like I was heard.
Not really. I think his next option will be,
Well, I don't care about him as much as someone who's him, but on the commercial side.
yeah, there's really not that kind of request available
Because they
at
don't,
the SOA level or at this level.
I mean, they don't, they don't really, since it's all licensed the same way, there's probably not enough attention paid to specialties, right? I mean, commercial being one, there's probably others, yeah.
If he could have hired someone who represented his case effectively at SOA.
Like an attorney or?
Yeah, like a better lawyer.
And you've got expert witnesses you can bring in.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in that case, there was an expert witness in there.
Does he represent my counsel? No.
The man today?
No, he's
No,
supposed
no,
to.
he was not. But you also, it doesn't end here.
Referred to him.
So you could, at the appellate level, depending on what you preserve, et cetera.
So for a commercial person to, whatever, avoid the issue of being regulated by a bunch of people on the residential level is to hire an attorney and or expert witnesses to offset it.
Well, that's what we do. We have, like, for example, nobody at this table is an inspector, so we had Lee go as our expert witness. He's the head of the inspection committee.
How many commercial complaints do we get?
Very few. It's very few. And when we get those, we treat them like any other complaint. They have the ability to give us all the information that they think that we need to look at. If we have further questions, we follow up with them before we make any decisions.
There's very few, I'm under the impression about 90% is residential and 10% is commercial. Or 95-5. So are the complaints in line with that 95-5 split?
In what, I'm unclear.
Like, are the
Residential.
complaints regarding like 90% residential?
I mean, does it reflect the
10%?
split of
I
practitioners?
think it would be like 99 to 1.
Yeah, it'd be more like 99% or residential.
So this could be.
Oh, I'm sure that.
Yeah.
I think you could have, I'm gonna keep on initiatives, but you could have an initiative that talks about like just exploring the commission's, I don't know if interactions is the right word, but like what goes on at the commission level, enforcement level with commercial complaints, commercial license holders. Is there a need for different things as it relates to, it's the same license. I think there's also the thought that you have a diverse commission who's able to, you've got someone who's got experience at the, at the commercial side. I don't know that you always do. But that's something that that exploration, we get a lot of questions about commercial. We just put on the BRAC, we put someone who's got a lot of commercial experience for that reason, that they could bring that perspective. But that's, yeah. So I think that's something that might be one to talk about tomorrow as an
That's a
initiative.
big complaint.
Yeah, because they said they wanted to add stuff to the workshop list.
We brought Mingdon in.
When was the
Yeah,
last time we did
exactly.
A commercial case that went to SOA.
Never that I recall.
Well, that's-
And most of the commercial, I mean, they're gonna solve it civilly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got lawyers from the beginning and.
Yeah.
Yeah, those transactions are a lot different, that there are attorneys involved from the very beginning in a lot of those, so, a lot of that's resolved before they would even think about filing a complaint with us.
But we do license, I mean, it's a,
But it is,
It's more license
it's
based.
our jurisdiction, that's still, so.
Yeah, it's still in our
and
jurisdiction,
we
but we
still
don't.
license commercial brokers, and I mean, I've heard more than once, you know, how deep, you know, like, what is the commission's relationship with commercial? And it's always like this or that, or should there be more education as it relates to that? I mean, these are just the questions that we get thrown at us, and, you know, even just maybe more commercial representation at advisory committee level is one of the things, but that could be something that we look at. We look at our stats, we look at that kind of a thing.
Well, probably 4 years ago, we worked with Texas Realtors and redesigned Legal 1, Legal 2 with a commercial slant.
Mhm.
And that was probably 8 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, the associations have worked hard on that issue for a while now, trying to create that, of course, get them, I mean, first off,
Involved.
get them involved. I
They've
mean,
never
that's
been
the hardest
involved at all.
All right, anything else before I see y'all at 9 AM in the morning?
no,
No.
And
Move to adjourn.
are we downstairs?
No, we're here.
We're here, 9 AM. All right, let's adjourn at 4:05.
Talking to you all day.
Oh, it's not the latest.